and kick this off. So, because we're right on time, I'm Paula Kohler. I'm the Executive Director for our Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. And we have a very esteemed group of folks with us this morning who are going to be joining us down here outside of Orlando. Pretty close to the famous Mouse House, I guess you could call it, down near Disney Springs. And so we're so happy to see you all and excited that you're coming. Those of you who worked with us last year on this institute, and again, those new folks that are working with us. So I'm going to, Drew is pretty much our main organizer. Drew Andrews, who's here with me. You've heard him talk. He's sent you lots of emails and done a great job with organizing things. So he will be one of your go-to people here. And then I think we can go down our list of participants and just have everybody give their name and what organization they're with, and whether or not you were at the Institute with us facilitating last year. So it looks like if we go down the phone, Heather, you're first, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Heather Mack. I am retired. I spent 34 years working with transition in Brevard County, and then ultimately retired from the University of South Florida's Project 10 Transition Center.
Fantastic.
And what?
Fantastic. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jim, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Jim Martin, retired professor for 12 months. I retired a year ago at the University of Oklahoma, and now I'm back working part-time at the Zero Center. And this is the first time I've been at this institute, so I'm looking forward to it.
Although Jim has been involved in many of our national institutes and our institutes that we've done for many, many years now in Oklahoma. So thanks. He's kind of a veteran.
But just turn my video on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, new to this context. So. Okay.
Tara, do you want to go next?
I can. My name is Tara Rowe, actually Dr. Tara Rowe. I still get caught up saying that.
Yay!
Yes. And I am a director of a program for students with autism here at the University of North Florida. And I have been a part of the Institute last year and from the inception, and I'm still in contact with some of the schools that I was working with. So I'm excited to pick back up where we left off last year.
Cool. Thanks, Heather. I mean,
that's okay.
Hey, Susan, would you like to go next?
Yes, I'm Susan Loving. I'm retired from the State Board of Education, where I was the state transition specialist for 16 plus years. Prior to that, I worked in a school district as the transition specialist for a while. And I participated in the Institute last year, and I've participated in several of the NTACT institutes also.
Great.
Fantastic.
Alicia, would you like to...
you know, I get to go to work with the facilitators in Utah. Susan, they're in February, they're continuing your legacy. So
Super, I'm glad to hear that.
That's great.
I might have to stop down and say hello.
Oh, that'd be great. I love it.
Alicia, would you like to go?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Alicia Sternberg, and I am a new doc student working on NTACT in Western Michigan right now, and this is my first time at the Institute.
Okay. Sandra, would you like to go?
Sure. I'm Sandra Miller, and I am currently...
We're having trouble hearing you, Sandra. Can you turn your volume up just a little bit?
Can you hear me better now?
No, still very
Not
weak.
much. You're kind of faint.
Maybe I'm covering things up here. I don't know. Is that any better? No?
No.
Can you hear us well?
I can hear you very well. I have you.
Okay, so Sandy, I'm going to just say this loud and clear for her. So Sandy Miller is a fantastic resource. She's up in Delaware, and she was the lead transition person for VR in Delaware, and now is the director of those services for the Division of Blind Services. I'm probably not saying that correctly. But so Sandy's been on the Delaware transition team working with us in Intact for many years. And so has been a team member during these institutes. But and one of the reasons we asked her to join us here is because of her knowledge of VR and then also serving students who are blind or who have visual impairment. So thanks for coming down.
Okay. Stephen, would you like to go? You're muted. Let me.
Better?
Yes.
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephen Smith. I am the executive director of AHEAD, the Association on Higher Education and Disability. And I was involved with the Institute last year, and I look forward to this year. I've had the good fortune of being in touch with one of the groups that I worked with last year throughout this year, which has been nice to have that continuity. And I've been involved for several years with the Intact program as well.
Who has followed up with you from last year?
Florida Keys.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, they're great. They'll be here. Mm-hmm.
Patrick?
Hi, I'm Pat Mulvihill. I am retired. Formerly, I worked for the School Board of Broward County, the Transition Center, and Project 10. I was at the Institute last year, and I'm looking forward to continuing with that.
Well, thanks for coming, Pat. And Pat also, for those of you who may not know, is a huge force in the Florida DCDT. So he coordinates their Visions Conference with others each year, and manages all the presentations and everything. So yeah. he's a true DCDT trooper.
Thank you.
Yes.
We appreciate your service.
Gwen.
Oh, you're on mute.
Gwen is muted. Go ahead,
Can
Gwen.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Hi.
hear you.
Okay, I'm Gwen Williams. I'm an associate professor of special education at Jackson State University, and I participated in the Institute last year, and I participated with INSTAT for several years. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. And Jill, let me unmute. There, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. So I retired from Dade County Public Schools about 2.5 years ago. I was in charge of transition and post-secondary program at FIU and lots of other stuff. And now I am the director of the Des Moines Foundation, and we secure and support young adults with developmental disabilities in employment.
Great.
And I have done this, I think, from the beginning. So I am a returnee.
Great. And Hunter.
Thank you.
Can you guys
Hey,
hear me?
Hunter.
Hey. I'm Hunter Matusevich. I am a pre-employment career counselor in Delaware for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Okay,
and has a huge background in special education. She is a legacy individual whose dad is a transition lead in Delaware. And so Hunter's participated on their state team for a couple of years now, but also worked with our colleagues out at Oregon for her undergrad. And now she's, I believe, working with our colleague Jim Martin at OU for her master's. And I can tell you, we want her to come to UCF for her PhD. So we are heavily recruiting, and glad she's coming down.
Okay, B. B, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
see her name.
I can see her name.
I think she's on the phone. 352 probably.
No, she's up top here. Well, B is at Santa Fe College, and I know she's the assistant vice president of, I think student success or something there. But whenever she can, maybe when she can join us. Okay, now let me. Okay, now B can hear.
Yes, I can hear you.
Now it's working.
Now you can hear me. Okay, maybe I was muted. I was talking. Obviously, you couldn't hear me, so I apologize. Thank you for introducing me. Yeah, you did a great job, Drew. I'm the Assistant VP for Student Affairs and College Ombuds at Santa Fe College in Gainesville, Florida. And I attended the Institute and participated last year, and I look forward to participating again this year. We do have a project on our campus, Project Saints.
Right, and B has also led Florida Ahead in the past and has been certainly engaged nationally with that, with the National Ahead group. So we are so happy to see you again, B. It's been too long.
Thank you.
And then I see a 904 number, so I'm thinking that might be Dr. Janice Seabrooks Blackmore.
It may be me.
Oh, Chris,
I
that's
think it's
Dr.
me.
Christy.
It's Chris.
Wow. Hey, Chris.
Yes, it is. Good morning, everyone. I'm recently retired from the University of North Florida, now living in Central Florida. And I think I've been involved with this, with NTAC and NSTAC certainly since the beginning, and thrilled to be invited back to help to share with our Florida efforts.
Yahoo!
Okay. And is there anyone other than our presenter who is here? I'm looking for either Dr. Seabrooks Blackmore or Dr. Margot Izzo.
I think Margot said she was in an airport, so.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay, well then.
And I think Janice was going to, thought Janice was going to be able to join us, but I'll just throw in here quickly. We have also Philip Sassy, who is one of our doctoral students working here at the Florida Center, and Philip is logged in and listening to this. It'll be his first institute. And we also have Caitlin Bucati, who works with our evaluation activities here at the center. So those are other staff. And then we did not introduce June, but June Gothberg has worked with certainly us. June Gothberg has worked with me on field research grants funded by NSF, funded by OSEP, and through in STAC and in TAC. And so I appreciate her continuing engagement. She's actually working with us on behalf of Intact because our work here at the center focused on post-secondary education programs is one of the areas on which we focus with our national center. So she and Alicia are engaged in that way. So what we learn from Intact, we bring here, and what we can learn and take to Intact, we take there. So it's kind of an important connection. And June is going to be, last year, many of you worked with Jennifer Coyle, who has also sort of been involved in those same roles that June has with me over the years. And so Jennifer's not able to be with us this year, but June has led many times our facilitator preparation in our Intact work. So she's going to lead us here today, and she will be one of your major on-site contacts and supports when you get to Orlando. So we'll turn it over to June. So June, I had shared my, did I share my? I don't think I shared my screen, but are you going to share your screen? And
I had told Drew that you guys can go ahead and share the screen because I knew you had slides that you wanted to present. So
right.
I'm sure the order we were going to do stuff, but I can It's up to you.
Okay, well, I'm sharing now, so people should be able to see my PowerPoint. Can you see that, folks?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So again, this is just really, some of this is going to be kind of a quick run through for you. Okay, why is my, a quick run through for those of you who were here last year and who know about the Institute and the background of that. I'm going to run through that real quickly because I'm not sure that Alicia and perhaps Heather and Sandy and Hunter and a couple of others have the context for this. So again, these are going to be your key contacts for facilitators on site. And if you have questions or emails that you need to send to us beforehand. You also should have been hearing from Eric Brewington, as well as an email that's like travel desk at UCF.edu or something like that, because our staff is also working with you on your travel plans and reimbursements and stipends and those things. So so anyway, that's this is our contact, and we have our contact information at the end of this. So we're going to talk just really, really briefly about the center and where we are, and then somewhat briefly about what the Institute is, and then we'll just go through the particulars of this Institute, because again, I think everybody that's here has been involved with either our Intact Institutes over the years or also involved last year, so you've got most of this information. And I'll turn it over to June when we get to the sort of particulars. So this, our center, Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities, was established back in, well, the funding and the law that established us was back in 2016. So we've really just now coming up that the week of our Institute will be our 3rd year since the legislation was passed. And so it's kind of we'll be focusing on that sort of celebration as well at the Institute, because that's what provides the opportunity. So that legislation established the center. It established the Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Programs, which really replicate the federal CTPs that many of you are familiar with, but it also funded these significant resources that are not available in most states, and those are startup grants or enhancement grants, and as well as scholarships for eligible students to attend these programs. And the reason I'm going to just briefly go through those is to make sure that you all are aware of these resources, because these are the kinds of things we'll want to make sure that your teams know about. And when you get our draft agenda, or when you get on site and see the agenda of the breakout sessions, what you're going to see is that our staff, myself or Drew, are not doing any presentations this year. We do have Claudia, who's our programmer and web guru, doing a presentation, because we had requests for people about how do we market our program and how do we use that web presence. So Claudia will be doing that, but that's really the only sort of formal session that we'll be doing on that. So we want to make sure that people still have the information about what resources are available so they can access those. So again, I guess could say we're the most significant resource because the funds and other things flow through our center, but we also do a lot of things like webinars, sponsor this institute. We do a lot of site visits around the state, and presentations for state college folks, career tech ed, university folks, so that, again, we're always kind of rolling out the information. And one thing that just sort of came to mind is that we asked the state college folks, the state university system folks, and the CTE folks to send out information, and the Board of Governors of the state university system actually sent out a message to all the presidents. So, so we have really good collaboration with our sort of our educational governing bodies. So that's really cool. We're glad that we got that this year. So to be able, the people that you're going to be working with, and you'll get questions from people that said, well, because we just got a call yesterday from an organization that, you know, wants to get a grant, wants to be able to start a program in collaboration with the university, but you know, they are not the university. They're a private, nonprofit organization that is, you know, supports themselves through grants and contracts. So they would not be eligible to establish a program. So the entities that are eligible in our state are the state universities, the Florida college system institutions. And in Florida, some years ago, they converted all their community colleges to state colleges. Now, we still have some institutions that go by the name community college, Tallahassee Community College, Florida Keys Community College, but then we have Daytona State College, Valencia College, Central College of Central Florida. So when we're looking at the state college system, it's these institutions that offer both 2- and 4-year programs. And what exactly those programs are really based on the institution. We also have career tech colleges. And in some cases, these serve both secondary students or dually enrolled students, and they serve post-secondary students as well. Well, our focus is on post-secondary education. So we work with them through their post-secondary programs, not a secondary, not a dual enrollment, not a young adult program for students with disabilities. It's all at the post-secondary level. So we're always sure that we make that point clear as you're working with teams through this planning process. And then you can be a private college or an independent college or university that's located and chartered in the state, but they have to be nonprofit and they have to be accredited by SACS. So we're working with Beacon College up in Leesburg to establish a program there. And I think they're sending some people. And then we're also working and have a new program at Southeastern University, which is over in Lakeland. And so those are private colleges, but they are accredited by SACS and they're not for profit. So thus they are eligible to access these resources. Okay, and of course these programs are designed to serve students with intellectual disabilities, but they are students who have left K-12, no longer served by IDEA, and you know, they have some sort of documentation that supports their identification as having an intellectual disability. One thing that you'll see and that you'll hear in conversations with your teams could be regarding students with ASD. Well, students who are on the spectrum may be eligible to participate in these programs, but those are students who have also a diagnosis as having an intellectual disability. So just having a diagnosis of a developmental disability or ASD in particular does not mean that they are necessarily eligible to participate in a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. Okay, so these programs in particular in Florida must focus on employment outcomes. And of course, they're provided in inclusive contexts. Students have to attend at no less than half-time enrollment. The institutions must provide students upon completion of their program a meaningful credential or industry certification. So, so they have a curriculum, and that curriculum must result in some sort of credential, and ideally it would be an industry certification or opportunity to earn industry certification, but But as we know from post-secondary education, all post-secondary education programs don't necessarily offer an industry cert per se. They offer you a degree or certificate or or something of that nature, an endorsement or whatever. So so not every program offers a industry certification. We have a current list of all the credentials that are offered by the various programs. So we will, in your facilitator packet, or perhaps prior to that, we'll send you that information just so you get a sense of if you're working with that team, one of those teams in particular, but also just give you some background where you'll see what's happening around the state with those programs. These programs have to define what satisfactory academic performance means. And again, those of you who worked in higher ed may be familiar with this term, because any student that's accessing financial aid has to demonstrate SAP, as we call it, in order to maintain their scholarship or maintain their financial aid. And the same applies to students who are participating in these programs who are earning Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program scholarships. So, so as the programs develop their applications, they have to define, and usually this is in collaboration with their financial aid office, what SAP means for those students in their Florida Comprehensive Transition Program. And these programs also have to apply to become a federally approved program. Again, many of you are familiar with the comprehensive transition programs that are allowed through the U.S. Department of Ed. So Florida requires our programs to apply to become a federal program, and you do that through your financial aid office through their Title IV program portal. And what that does is once they get approved as a FCTP, their students have access to federal financial aid as well as that offered through our center. All our programs, current programs, except one, well, I won't say that. All our programs that are operating currently, except one, have their federal CTP application in, and I think 5 or 6 of them now have their approval. A couple of them are still pending, and then we have a new program at St. Pete College, and they've not submitted theirs yet. They have to do that within this next year. So, so all of them have met this requirement, except the newly formed programs. Okay, so scholarships are available for eligible students. This is again something that you need to be aware of because your teams, they know something about this and they want to be able to get this. So as soon as they have an approved program, then their students are eligible for these scholarships. And so you can see the progress that we've made in just a couple of years. We had 48 scholarships awarded in the first year of our operation. And then currently we have 104 scholarships awarded. And I'm still waiting on the new scholarship request from a couple of institutions. So that number should go up for this year. But the scholarship is a fixed amount at $7,000 a year. And once we approve a program, we send them all the information that they need to request scholarships for their students. Scholarships, typically a parent will get on and apply, or the student will get on and fill out their FAFSA, it's their federal application for student financial aid. That doesn't happen in this case. The programs request a scholarship on behalf of their students, and that request comes to us here at the center. Okay, so grants are another opportunity or resource for these. We have Right now we have 10 programs that are basically up and running, or as of the semester. 9 of those programs have grants. And we have another application in from Lee County to establish, it's down in Fort Myers, to establish new programs at their Cape Coral Tech and Fort Myers Tech, the 2 tech colleges in the district. For those of you outside of the state, career tech colleges are most often operated by the K-12 systems, the school districts in our state, and there's 67 districts in Florida, many of whom have some sort of tech colleges, but some of whom do not. Some of them just basically have a state college, and the state college would be the institution that offers perhaps those 2-year industry cert programs. Typically, we would know as CTE programs. But most of the ones we're working with are offered by the school districts. The institution, so what you're going to see again is you'll have conversations in your teams about the grants and availability of this money, and you know, how much is it? It's up to $300,000 a year. Oops, I thought that was on there. It's up to $300,000. It's up to $300,000, and they can spread that over 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. An institution can have only 1 grant at a time. So if you're the school district of Lee County, you can submit a grant and you can share it across your tech colleges, but you couldn't have a $300,000 grant in this tech college and a $300,000 grant in your other tech college. That's something I'm actually working on the legislature with, because in many cases, these different branches or colleges within a sort of region serve different groups of students, and they serve, so they serve different populations, and they offer different programs. So we're trying to see if there's some way we can modify that requirement that's in the legislation. So it requires a change of the law in order to do that. We don't need to go into too much information about what's a new program, what's an enhancement grant, what's a startup grant. The applications are basically the same. It's just that some of you will work with a team like Florida International University, like Tallahassee Community College, that already serves students with intellectual disabilities in their institution. They might be serving them through a young adult, quote, 18 to 22 program, or they might be serving young adults in post-secondary education. So they might have a program, but they're not an approved Florida program. So again, they can apply for a grant to step it up to meet the parameters to become an approved program, or move from just serving that IDEA covered population to actually cover post-secondary education. So again, the key to remember as you're working with your teams is we focus on post-secondary education students, students with intellectual disabilities who have left the K-12 system or the IDEA system, and that are going to an eligible institution. Okay, so we help with all this stuff. So the whole idea of why we are having an institute really is to make sure that people understand what these resources are, the resources that are available to them, and then we also want them to increase their knowledge about how do you actually serve students with intellectual disabilities in post-secondary education? Because as we go around the state and as you all work around the country, and I'm sure Bea and Stephen see this significantly, as well as Tara in her work with kids on the spectrum at North Florida, they're like, what? We're gonna have programs for kids with intellectual disabilities at our university? It's just like not it doesn't line up for some folks. So, and Drew and I were at a meeting last week over at, with Volusia County Public Schools, and an individual from Daytona State College. And so Volusia County wants to see things happening. I was at Seminole State College, I think, right before Christmas. We were at up in Gainesville working with their medical school folks before the holiday. And, you know, there you see the look in people's eyes, which is, this is interesting. Where do I start? So part of what you'll see in our sessions is just some basic presentations of, this is what it looks like in a state college, or this is what it looks like in a university, or this is the kind of assessment that we're doing with our students, or this is how we think about working with our faculty as they prepare to have students with intellectual disabilities in their classes. So there'll be a lot of content in the sessions, and then interspersed with that content, as those of you who are familiar with our institute processes, that they're going to have team meeting time, and that's where you all come in. So there was about 6 hours of team meeting time over Thursday and Friday for them to think about those resources that are available. Think about, God, what are these people telling us, what they're doing? Think about that knowledge, and then figure out, okay, well, how do we use that here on our campus? We've got 2 of the tech colleges, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, Robert Morgan Tech College, and then McFadder Tech College down in Broward County. Their grants, they wrote for 2-year grants, and so their grants will be ending this year. So those of you who are working with those, for example, when I got a call from one of them yesterday, and they're like, okay, well, when do we start writing our next grant? So part of what you might be doing with these folks is, again, thinking about, where do you start, and then how do you get those resources to help you start or to help you continue? Because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. They're still trying to figure out how to sustain their existing program. And so how could they use these resources to continue that while they're building their sustainable model? And so again, we provide them opportunities to network. We've got a lot of agency folks that'll be there. VR, thank you, has been really engaged with us around the state. So we'll have opportunities for them to meet with VR counselors, many of them with the VR counselor that serves their area of the state. Okay, so registration, we start on Wednesday, and we probably should add another piece on here. So Wednesday we open up first thing, and people will be coming in. Your facilitator preparation, as you see, is that day as well. But we're also having a pre-institute workshop on student mentoring. So you all will be in facilitator prep, so I apologize that you can't go to that workshop. But we have some folks coming in, or one person who's with that National Reading Council, and they do a certified mentor program. So what we're trying to do is get many of our programs to see about getting their mentors nationally certified through this group. And we had Drew and a staff member from the UCF program, Indian River State College, Florida Keys, and Southeastern University all went to Memphis or St. Louis?
St. Louis.
St. Louis last summer to participate in a 2-day workshop with these folks. And so we have the national people coming, and then we have those people who attended that workshop who are going to be putting on our workshop to talk about how to set up a national a certified program. It's kind of a train the trainer sort of thing. So that actually goes on from 10 to 4 Wednesday. Your facilitator prep goes from 9 to 3. I'll show you that schedule in a minute. And then the whole thing kicks off at 5:30. So we'll have our overview and our introduction, and then we'll have our kickoff keynote. And that's actually going to be 2 student mentors and 2 student mentees from 2 of the programs. So we'll kind of build on that mentor workshop day, but also give people a chance to see the relationship that can develop between mentors and mentees, and how they support each other. So it's always nice to kick off with students. So we have that to begin with. Last year, those of you who were there know that we had our networking reception that night, but the facilities, we were not able to get the facilities this year to do that. So we had to move that to Thursday. And then, so then we'll have our full day, our full agenda. I think everybody's gotten a copy of that agenda. Shayna, I think if Shayna's on, she could post that agenda. Or Drew, if you have that PDF file, you can add it to this to the Zoom meeting info. But that's the, and so it'll give you the sort of basic agenda, which again is when the sessions are, when the team meetings are, when lunches are. For your information, well, maybe I'll go to the next slide. And then we have the last of the institute is from about 1:30 to 2:30. So we finish at 2:30. So hopefully you'll be there for your team's report out and be able to help them and support them in that. So,
Paula, I'm going to let you take a break for a minute.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Because I have a couple things to say. You can go back to that institute format slide. Take us back to that one.
There we go.
And I am June Gathberg, and I just want to tell you, some of you I know really well because we've done lots of work together. And some of you I don't know as well. And I just have to tell you that I am a Paula Kohler fan club member. I've been stalking Paula for a while, but as we move into this institute format, I wanted to let you know that this capacity building institute model has been created and fine-tuned to address the research to practice gap. And that's been done in collaboration with many. And it's been done with several of you that are on the call today, but Paula Kohler has really led the charge passionately to bring this capacity building model to where it is today. And I estimate, she might correct me, that this has been being worked on for at least 20 years. I had the opportunity to be a participant in the early stages of this model in the late 90s when I was a classroom teacher. And then I had the distinct privilege to do this work with Paula and the rest of the INSTAC/INTAC groups starting in 2007. And what I want to tell you is it's hard work. These institutes are hard work. Your participants get tired. You're going to be tired. There's a lot of getting out of your comfort zone to do this type of planning, and not everybody has a lot of training in it. But what I want to tell you is it's worth the work. When these capacity building models are done with fidelity, the model works. And it just doesn't just work at the organizational level to make change happen. It also works at that student outcome level. And I have been part of the team. My PhD is in evaluation measurement research. So I have been part of the team looking at what works, what doesn't work, and why. And I can tell you that we have years of data that shows that when teams buy in and they create really good, technically sound plans, change happens down to that student level. So you as facilitators are really critical to helping that team move through the process. You're very critical to helping that team buy in and know that doing this the way that it's laid out is really important. And I think I can speak for Paula and Drew and Caitlin and Shayna and Claudia. We are so glad that you've accepted this to come and spend a couple days and help these teams really make a difference to our youth with disabilities. So I just had to say that first, Paula.
But I mean, but that,
you can speak back over.
But you know, she's right. It is hard, and you will at times go, "What the hell am I doing here?" And you will go, "What is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
What are they thinking?" Or, "Oh my God, why did they bother to come?" Or, "Oh my God, they are rocking and rolling. They're leaving me behind because they're on a roll and they know what they want to do and they're just moving ahead to do it." All of that will happen. And we try to explain that in our facilitator preparation manual that we set out. And Alicia and June and Jennifer worked really hard. We started that manual a number of years ago, but they worked really hard to revise it and update it. So it's hot off the presses.
Well, in saying that, we are in draft. So if you see something that you think we need to add to, or you have suggestions at the end, please let us know.
Yeah. So, you know, again, most of you are familiar with the sort of makeup of and Jen, you just chime in whenever you need to. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep blabbing here.
You can keep going.
But, you know, again, the focus is on post-secondary. I'll keep saying that over and over again because some of your folks will want to know about dual enrollment or young adult programs. And that's not our area. That they can exist, nothing wrong with them. It's just that the resources that we are appropriated can't be used for that. So this post-secondary program planning tool is a thing that will be new to some of you all, and some of you worked with it last year. And again, that's another really difficult part of this process. And I know Jim Martin would say, and Chris would say, and having worked in states and with teams, you'll go, they either love the tool or they hate the tool. And you'll have some of that. We got one comment last year about, and Gwen, I'm sure Gwen knows that as well, and Stephen, that, well, it just seems like we're doing a lot of paperwork. Well, as June said, we've analyzed the paperwork over the years to look at what the relationship is between doing good paperwork and achieving your outcomes, and it's really important. So,
well, and we have Susan Loving that is with us, and I think she to this. Many teams come the first year and hate it, hate the tool, hate the process, and then they come back in about year 3 and say, this is the absolute best thing we ever did.
Yeah, which is why I'm going back to Utah next the week after we have this, because they're still doing it. Even though Susan put the system in place, and even though she's retired, they're still doing it. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so last year we had 14 teams. This year we have 23, which is awesome. So we have 23, and what we mean by a team is we have 23 post-secondary education institutions represented. And, you know, a team could be one, or it could be, I don't know, I think UCF probably has 6 or 7 people coming now. Tallahassee Community College, I think, has 6 people. So there are, you know, the team, these will range in numbers. So when we send out our registration information, and you all got on and registered, you would see where they have to identify what institution they're with, and then who the team leader is. So what we did, Drew very painstakingly did, was sent out emails to all the lead contacts for these institutions and gave them the list of the people who were registered under that institution. And the purpose of that was to let them know who's registered under that institution in case there were any surprises. And there were, in one case in particular, and to let them know these are the people that are registered. Is everybody you were expecting registered? And we found in one institution that no, there was only one person registered and they were expecting 6 or 7. So that gave them an opportunity to follow up and really shore up the registrations for people. We're still getting those in and being finalized, but the list here is basically the people that you'll see on those teams. In some cases, the teams have been formed at the request of the K-12 system. So they have gone out and sought out higher ed institutions in their area and said, let's get on this, let's go. What we're doing is we're paying, again, in case you get any questions asked, but if they ask you, just send them to the desk. We're paying for their hotel room for everybody. It's just easier that way. And then we're paying, we are providing a number of meals, as you can see from our agenda, during the Institute. So basically the cost to these other participants is, their travel cost and or a couple of meals here and there and tolls and those sorts of things. But we're paying all the hotel costs and then we're providing a few meals. Now for y'all, your expenses are covered completely, so don't worry about that. But just so you know what we're doing for the participants. What else was I gonna say? When we talk about the sessions, I just wanna give you a little heads up because maybe we go into it a lot at on-site facilitator prep, but you all are familiar with how we use the content resources. So Hunter, Sandy, those of you who have been, Jim, who've been on a team and you invite somebody into your team to talk with you about what they're doing or what their presentation is, are familiar with that process from that perspective. And of course, the people who facilitated last year know that we'll give you a content request form so your team can invite speakers in to talk with them individually about a particular topic. So just a heads up, you will get that content resource availability list in your packet at the Institute, but Chris Webb, Janice Seabrooks, Jim Martin, Gwen Williams, and who else? I think, I don't know if there's anybody else, are doing content sessions for us. So normally it's those people who do the content presentations that you have on your content resource list, to come and meet with your teams, but they're going to be facilitating as well. So they've got kind of a double burden. But what we've done that second morning or the Thursday morning is we're doing a sort of table talk working breakfast, and you'll see it on the agenda. And I'll go over this, you'll get this in facilitator prep, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that it'll be a little bit more trouble for you all to, you have to pay attention sort of more closely this year to that content resource availability list, because we have so many talented people doing our facilitating that, but we also have these topics that we wanted covered that we need to use some of you all to cover those particular topics. So won't be able to be facilitators, but we're going to have these table discussions there Thursday morning around the topics on which they're presenting. And I think we asked a couple of others of you to do those as well, so that again, people could come in and get information about those topics since they won't be able to, be in the team meeting. So just want to throw that out. We have a team leader preparation webinar this afternoon, and we're going to go over this stuff with them. But again, this will be the kind of data that we tell them would be useful to them to bring as they put together their teams. Some will have it, some won't have it. Oh my gosh, that thing got so weird. Look at that. We will be using the tool again. And what we will do is once we get all our teams registered and we know how many people are on the team and we know how many teams we have and where our space is in the hotel, then we'll be doing our facilitator team assignments. Now, if you, like Pat, you said you had some connections. I think Tara said she had some connections with some of the people y'all worked with, and Stephen did as well. Shoot us an email if you have a particular notion to work with the people that you did last year. We may or we may not be able to do that, just depending on who comes and who doesn't come. But if you want to do that, send Drew an email and CC me on it. When we go to make those matches, we'll see if we can do that. I know we had a group ask for Gwen because it was somebody that ran into Gwen last year, and they were like old friends. So I was like, can we really have her? So that was kind of cool. So anyway, you're going to be using the tool, and what we're going to do is if your team that you're going to be working with this year was there last year or at our mid-year check and connect, we'll give you a copy of the latest thing that we have from them. So you'll have a thumb drive with a blank tool on it. You'll have also in the files there, you'll have whatever documents we had from them from last year. So you'll be able to look at that ahead and kind of see where or if they did anything, or even if they've been there before. So we'll get that to you. If we can get, we're always shuffling those facilitator assignments, as you know, up until the last minute because of changes. But if we can get those ahead of time, you'll get those ahead of time. If not, then we will get them to you on site. We might try and get them out to you like next Thursday if we think we have things pretty well firmed up. But if not, we still literally, I have to go visit a college on Monday that's interested in sending a team, but they won't know till after that. So that's kind of the state that things are always in. But as you know, those of you who were here before, we took information from the work Lyman Dukes and his colleagues have done around general access for students with disabilities and post-secondary ed. We took the work that myself, June, Jennifer, and Catherine and I did to update the taxonomy. And then we used the Think College standards, quality indicators and benchmarks. We pulled all that together into this team planning tool. We're still building the online version of this, so we're stuck with paper, but Claudia is making really good process, and we've had to pretty much go in and reprogram the entire intact secondary team planning tool site. So we've just about got that done. We've got new features added to that we're going to be rolling out for our Intact Institute in May. So it's just going to be a much better, I guess I would call, platform than it has been in the past, and then we'll be plugging in this post-secondary stuff to it. But that's what we use, and those of you who work with us know we're all focused on these tools. This one has 4 domains instead of 5, and it's really focused on the students that are attending the programs, the program, and the institution and the services that they provide, the faculty and staff and engaging faculty, and staff in your program with your students, in your planning and in your curriculum, and then sort of broader perspective on concept and system development, real community connections, paradigms, those kinds of things. It's very similar to our transition program tool that many of you are familiar with. So you've got your step one, it's going to be who's the team, who's the leader, who's on this team. That's the simple part. And then there's the needs assessment. And so within that needs assessment area, you look at each of those 4 domains, and then within each of those 4 domains are listed those key constructs. So if you're looking, I'm thinking about students, then one of the domains or one of the benchmarks within that would be, how are you doing student-focused planning to help the student identify what credential option they want to enroll in, or how are you providing, identifying student supports, how are students accessing technology to meet their needs. So it'll be those student directed kinds of things. And so with each of those benchmarks, then we have, again, reflective questions so that people kind of get to the depth of what these constructs are. And then they're asked to implement, to sort of scale, where are we on implementing this? So those of you who are working with existing programs, some of them should be able to say, well, we're still not doing that yet, or we're doing this really well, or we're sort of doing this. And then we wanted to drive them into looking at their evidence. So if you're doing student-focused planning, student-centered planning, what's your process? Are you sure you're doing it with everybody? And then how well is it working would be the next question. So what's the feedback that you get back from students? Are you ending up with good matches with students? Have you identified the student needs? Are you meeting the student needs? What evidence do you have that you're achieving those things? So the basic question is, how well is it working? And so we always, again, want to bring people back to, do you, number one, do you have any evidence? And then 2, what does that evidence tell you? And then they, just like our transition program tool, they identify what their strengths are, what their needs are, and then set a priority for a particular area that would then move them into doing planning in that area. And within the planning, it's exactly the same. It's what's your goal going to be? What strategies are you going to use? What are you going to do? What are those tasks? Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it? What are you going to produce? And then what are your anticipated outcomes? So, well, we expect students to identify what their career goal is. And well, how are we going to know that? And where are we going to get the data that tell us whether or not students are doing that? We want more students to complete the CTE program. We want students to make SAP. Okay, well, how do you tell that they've made SAP, and what are your data sources for that? So that's it's our same planning process that most of you are familiar with. The content is not aligned with the 5 categories from the taxonomy. The content is aligned with those 4 domains that I mentioned that are really focused within post-secondary education and serving students. You all have meetings to go to, of course. So we have our facilitator prep. Actually, I think I should have corrected the slide. I think it's 9 to 3. So just make that note. You have time, especially those coming from other time zones, to have a leisurely breakfast and meet us at 9. And we'll have coffee, tea, and water in your meeting, and we'll provide lunch. And then when we end your facilitator prep at 3, then you'll have time to do your famous flip charts that I know all of you love doing. And Jim, I'm disappointed that Audrey will not be coming because she's not going to be available to help you with your flip charts. I know you will be in pain probably. I can hear him talking, but he's muted. Anyway,
Yeah, I wish she was coming, as she prints a lot better than I do.
I know. So anyway, you'll have time to work on those before we start up the Institute at 5:30. We will be providing a snack between the time your facilitator prep ends and before we begin the kickoff at 5:30. So there'll be some munchies out there for folks. And then the next morning we will have breakfast and we will have lunch, and then we have our reception that night as well. So we'll have facilitator debrief at the end of the day before the reception. So that's when, you know, you guys get to come in and identify what's happening, what's working, what's not working, what are the complaints, what are people getting off on, kind of stuff. So that's always, as you know, a structural piece of this process. So that's going to be real important for you to be there. You've got 3 team meetings, and you're kind of basically have 6 hours of planning. Team meeting 1, of course, there'll be lunch during that. So you'll send your teams down to the designated area, which we're doing a walk through the hotel tomorrow, so I'll know more about that. But you'll send your teams down to pick up, and this day we'll have a box lunch so they can get it and take it back to their team meeting room. And then at the end of the day on Thursday, they'll have another team meeting that ends right before the reception. Friday morning, you'll have another 2-hour team meeting. You'll have a chance. We know you won't meet with your team before that first meeting on Thursday. So you'll get your content resource request forms to be able to ask for resources to come in at team meeting 2 and team meeting 3. So we'll give you those request forms in your packets when you get on site. So one of the other things to keep in mind is the facilities. So it's at the same place we were last year. Now, last year we had a couple of different rooms available to us that we don't have like this year. So we might have to use some of the bigger rooms, some of the larger rooms, and have maybe 3 teams in there. And these might be in the rooms in which we're having, you know, our breakout sessions and or our whole group sessions. So we might have to pull those walls or pull the walls or take the walls down. So you will have your easels for your flip charts. But you might, depending on where you set yourself up in those rooms next to a permanent wall, if you're near a permanent wall, you can certainly leave your charts up and things. And if it's, you know, in one of the areas where the walls are coming down for large group sessions, we'll have to take that stuff down. But we'll go over that with each one of you, depending on where we end up with these room assignments and how large your teams are. We do still have those, all those cove rooms they're called. So some of you were on the 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, all the way up to the 12th floor. So we do have those rooms again, which were real nice because some of you could have your own defined space. You left your stuff up all the time and you weren't interrupted by any other groups or whatever. So again, we'll assign that space based on the size of teams and what's available to us. So we'll get all that to you there on site. But those of you who are in those upper rooms, you'll just need to send your teams down to pick up their box lunch. Now we'll talk about this when we're out at the hotel on Friday about, you know, having water available, but usually there should be water in all your meeting rooms. If they want something more than that, then they'll have to go down and you know, get the broader general refreshments from down in our major areas. Like I said, you got your facilitator prep manual. You're welcome to print it out. You're welcome. Remember, this is draft. Give us feedback. You're also if you want us to print you a copy of this for you to have on site, send Drew an email with a copy to me, and we will have that printed for you. So if we are happy, I mean, if you want to print it, be our guest. If you want us to print it for you, not a problem. Just let us know. You know how to dress. You know all this stuff. Even in Florida, it can be chilly. I'll be burning up. That's okay. And it's hard, and you'll be running around. So I always tell people I leave my high heels at home and dress comfy, because you're moving and you're talking and you're interacting and all that kind of good stuff. So we just want you to be comfortable. Oops. Okay, you all know this, and June already sort of described it. It's you guys are what makes this work, and it's not easy. We will have some time during facilitator prep to hear from Gwen and Stephen and Chris and those who have facilitated for numerous years for Intact, as well as from some of those who maybe facilitated for the first time at our institute last year, because you're going to be able to bring in sort of unique questions or things or issues that were raised by these teams as they thought about starting up these programs or working on their existing programs. So we will have time to talk about those specific strategies when we do our on-site facilitator prep. But these are your sort of roles of keeping things going, hoping you can get one goal with one complete plan out of your team. Now, I think we have 3 or 4 people that are just coming to represent their institution, that they're the only one. We'll either put those with a broader group if it's relevant to them, or else we'll give a facilitator like this group of individuals, and they can talk amongst each other, but then try to reflect on what they will do back at their institution. Here are the sections again that sort of really focus on what we have in our experience doing this over the 20 years we've been doing it, as the ones that we use most often. And it's like, how do you get the people to talk? How do you, some of you will have, and I know you did last year, so some of you had like 2 state colleges. Some of you had 3 universities. Some of you had, I think those were the most sort of common setup. Well, then how do you get those folks to sort of, you facilitate the group as a whole, but then they actually work as their own small institution group when they start doing specific planning or reflecting. But you can share content resources across, the various teams, they can have discussions if you're breaking people up and assigning them to go to different content sessions so that they can cover more content. We're sharing time to talk about that. They can share across their whole group, and then have them work in individual groups when they come to their own self-assessment or planning. The conflict thing is good, and that's again what June will be really supportive with. If you're having questions or issues with your groups. I know we had one sort of thing that we had to deal with last year, and we ended up having to break people apart because it was this context where there were sort of differing missions, or I don't know what you would even call it, but we had to come up with another facilitator and sort of break folks apart. So if something weird is happening, just let us know, and then we'll figure out how best to handle it. The flip chart thing is in there. The one thing, again, is when we're meeting with the Daytona State College folks last week, they're like, well, who would I bring on my team? And so we gave them some suggestions of who they might invite to come along with them. But, so that team is going to be very different than the team from FAU, which is this sort of core group of faculty that run this program, or core staff, or UCF is sort of core group of people that run that program, or even Santa Fe College. So when you get into that part of the facilitator manual, it starts talking about team forming, storming, norming, and performing. I always found that to be a really important section, and to keep that in my mind is trying to figure out, okay, where is this team? They're just now meeting each other for the first time, so there's going to be a little bit different than one who's already figured out how to work together. So that section of that manual, I think, is particularly useful. And again, we've got the tool. We're going to be the team leaders will get the same thing. So we'll have this for every team. We haven't figured out if we just give it to the facilitators or give it to the team leaders as well, but we will be sending, I think electronically, to the team leaders what we have for them. And they can print all that out, but we're making folders for them that we'll hand out, and we'll have thumb drives for everybody, but we'll also send these things out ahead if we have the information we need to do that. Okay, yep, a plan, one goal and a full plan for that goal. If you can get 3, kudos to you. We got 6 hours of planning. And again, the group that you're working with is just going to be varied. Some are just starting, and some are looking at, okay, well, how do we continue or expand this after this grant ends, because we're already going. Yes, a lot of these people need you to connect the dots. And that's why, again, if you have any questions about the resources that the center can provide, I'll I'll bring that in at the end when we're closing, but and also a little bit at the beginning in our overview. But so I wanted you all to have some basic knowledge about the resources, so that as they're talking about what they want to do, then you have that information to offer. And of course, those of you who are familiar with what's going on around the state, both at the secondary level and the post-secondary level, that's even better that you can provide that information. And people like Hunter and Sandy, I mean, what you all can bring in terms of working with VR, our VR people, we will be doing a session there. They will be having an information table. And last year, I think we had 19 VR counselors that attended. And so they would sit in with the team in their area, like I said before, but they always need new ideas. So if you can bring new ideas about how you're doing pre-ets, Hunter in Delaware or Sandy, Eric is gonna actually be here from Delaware, and you all worked out a really cool way for them to build VR for services they're providing for their students in their program. So they'll get that in a session, but you reinforcing those strategies would be helpful. We also have one session from people from up in Duval County, I think it's Duval County, correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, that are going to be talking about how they have become a pre-ETS vendor and what they're doing.
It's Nassau
County, that's right.
And for this year, we already have 16 vocational rehabilitation counselor and staff folks registered. 16 already, yeah, cool.
So they've been pretty engaged, but there are still, as we know, issues about how are students, are they clients? Are they not clients? Who are they serving? Is the program the individual plan for employment of the student? So anyway, those are things that they can always use support with. So questions? Anybody have any questions?
And remember, you may have to unmute yourself because the Zoom automatically mutes folks whenever you enter.
And I think I have to get on another.
Let me look in the chat box and see if there are any questions in the chat box. Oh, there's some new messages. Okay, let's see if there's anything in the chat box.
And I am going to sign off because I have to go on a webinar with Utah about their institute for Intact. So I am looking forward to seeing everybody, and I'm going to let June and Drew take over.
Paula,
yeah,
real quick, is it okay for me to share the PDF of these slides with the group?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll send that now. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Okay. And B, I see your question, and content experts, someone who's facilitating like yourself, because you're a facilitator this year, you'll be there, but it's someone cannot really serve as a content resource and a facilitator because the time overlaps. Any other questions? Okay. If you have any questions about your travel, or I think I've received a W-9 from everyone, so thank you all very much. We certainly appreciate you joining us and your willingness to help us facilitate our groups. We're excited with the number of folks that we have coming this year. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
Also, can I say one thing?
You certainly may.
At the very end of the PowerPoint slides, I put my cell phone number. When you are facilitating, you'll hear this again in facilitator prep on site, but when you're facilitating, we'd really like you to stay with your teams. So please, if you have any issues or problems, text either Drew or I or both of us, and we will get you the help that you need.
Yes.
So, thanks, Drew.
Okay. Well, I hope each of you have a wonderful Thursday, and thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, and thank you.